The last minutes of the dive were really stressful. We didn't come up, by the way, that we should have done. We should have come up as soon as we realized that we were not hearing the engine. Walking to that place, we already see the Zodiac on anchor in front of the house. Two of us went out for a late afternoon dive in the wreck because we wanted to accumulate as many hours in the wreck as we could. And we went to the wreck. It was like 5 in the afternoon or 6 in the afternoon, intervening in that site properly and responsibly. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. As part of a series of Risking Your Life for Archaeology, today I bring you the story of the Seven-Headed Serpent. So let's dive into it. In the year 2001, we were starting our project in Mozambique. We were just arrived. The main thing we had to do at the moment was to settle the team, well, at the time a very small team, to rent a house, to rent a storage room where we will put our dive gear. Equipment was just started to come from our previous expedition, which was in Cabo Verde. So we were still very fragile and very basic in the setting up of the expedition in the island of Mozambique. And even though as our main objective is to find and study shipwrecks, we were exploring the area around the best we could with the equipment we had, with the team we had, which was, as I mentioned, very small. We were starting also hiring and getting to know the collaborators, the Mozambican part of the team that we will work with. So we were depending on colleagues and friends and people who will recommend this or the other person. So we were starting setting up.
Why don't you explain maybe a little bit why the need to hire local team members as well for the success of your work?
Well, it's in part a need because by law you were required to hire a certain amount of nationals in every country, and it was in part a desire because one of the things we wanted to generate with our project in Mozambique or in any other country is the transfer of knowledge. So hiring local workers will help on that, and slowly, I mean, ideally when the project ends and you leave the country, there would exist a team that could carry on and continue with that project or a similar one. So yeah, it was the mix of these two. But you know, the island of Mozambique is a very small place. There is no sense that you hire someone from Nampula, for instance, which is living 150 kilometers away. It will not make it to work every day on time. So we need to make the team with the island of Mozambique people. And we were on doing that. In the middle of all this setting up, we continued surveying and exploring the area around the island, and we discovered this great wreck that it was really impressive for us since the day we found it, because it has this beautiful collection of Ming porcelain. I have mentioned the wreck before. It's the Espadarte. I will make an episode on the Espadarte itself, so I will not go into many details in this one. But since the moment we found the wreck, that we discovered the wreck, we realized that was potentially a very important wreck from the archaeological and historical point of view. So we were super excited. Problem is that the finding of such an important wreck when you're still in the very early moments of your project, well, it posed some challenges because you are still not totally established, you are not solid as a team, and you still have to do stuff because you don't want this to fade out.
Totally. And I imagine that it must be this little dilemma of whether you leave it alone until you have all the setup to be able to treat it as well as you can and as professionally as you can, or you start doing little by little whatever you can until the rest of the material and the resources and the people or whatever the resources in lack are come to the team.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, you have to make this combination. You don't want, if you find something that is 450 years old, you don't want to let it rest another 450 years or not even 2 months.
Or another minute.
Yeah, not even another month. But it's also a combination of the responsibility you have in intervening in that site properly and responsibly. So what we were doing at that moment, the only thing we could do was to map the site, to make a site plan of what it was visible, survey the site and try to understand better how was the dispersion of artifacts, where the wreck material of that wreck is located, I mean, which are the limits. So we were in this very excited because it is also like a blessing that you are just starting your project and you want your project to last for 5, 6, 7 years. You know, you want your project to last in time. Actually, we end up having the project for 12 years. But in the very beginning, when everything is an enigma, you are very lucky if you start right away finding a wreck which could be important. So we were all very excited. We were just 3 guys. We were just two colleagues and me, and the newly incorporated Mozambican team that we barely knew. I mean, we end up with a great Mozambican team along the years and a great expat team, but that was also through a filtering process during the years that you stay with the best people in your team. That's happened in every team that you build.
And in this type of work, I imagine, and maybe I'm making a wrong assumption, but I can imagine that it requires training or induction pretty much from site to site, regardless of how many years you've been doing the work, because...
Yes, it requires training for every diver who doesn't have experience working on historic shipwrecks. Let's say, okay, from wreck to wreck, we all need to sit and rethink what we will do because, as I have mentioned, no 2 wrecks are alike. But the experience helps. But remember, we were just starting, and every project start, you are getting in your team the people that are viable at that moment. Maybe not the people you need or you want. I was lucky because the 2 other colleagues I managed to bring, they were both very experienced and very talented. But sometimes...
And the people you wanted.
Yeah, well, I did want them, but I would appreciate that there would be much more like them, not just the 3 of us.
Sorry, because when you said that you had a small team, I was listening and I was gonna ask you how many, but I didn't even need to because 3 people is not a team. It's very small, yes.
Well, it had to be a team at that moment. We were all just the 3 of us. What I'm making a point in this, because this generates or force you to a certain style of work. You can't really plan your exploration, your survey, and everything that you have to do, because remember that we were settling, meaning that we were also taking care of a lot of logistics, which were not archaeological. I mean, we were renting a house and a storeroom. We were just finding a car for the expedition. We were importing equipment, so it's customs and things. Okay, we were in the middle of many things, but we didn't want that wreck to stay too much longer there without investigating.
That has to be human condition. There is literally no difference in you touching the wreck 2 days before or 2 days after it has been 405 years. under the water. You know what I mean?
I know. But you tell that to me in the
No,
afternoon,
impossible.
after the morning where we found the wreck. No, I'm diving in the afternoon, even if I have a meeting.
I believe you.
Even if I have a meeting with the administrator of the island or with the government for any reason, I'm diving that afternoon. So
Yeah.
we were doing that. As I said, we were a very small team. We had newly incorporated our Mozambican colleagues. And because of that, we were stretching the dives as long as we could, and during the day, making as many dives as we could. So in general, we were doing 3 dives a day in the wreck to manage to do all these things that I'm mentioning, like the mapping of the wreck and the surveying of the wreck. And one afternoon, we went out. One of my colleagues was down with malaria or something. I think it was malaria, was our first malaria in the project.
Yeah.
And just 2 of us went out for a late afternoon dive in the wreck because we wanted to accumulate as many hours in the wreck as we could. And we went out with the boatman and the 2 of us in our Zodiac, which is this inflatable boat. And we went to the wreck. It was like 5 in the afternoon or 6 in the afternoon. There are some moments in the year in which in Mozambique the sunset is very early. So sometimes at 6 or 6:30 in the afternoon it's just totally dark. And we went really in the limit of the time that we could use sunlight to work. So we were going out there. Going to the wreck was not very close, but was not like really far from the island. It was around 1 mile from our headquarters, our recently rented house. And we went out in the Zodiac. In the moment of going to the wreck, we could see that there was a storm brewing out there. It was forming a storm, apparently. But being so late in the afternoon, it was not really possible to judge if there was a storm or if it was just, less light because it was late. And you cannot identify if this lack of light was because the storm has a very dense clouds or if it's just natural. So we were not extremely worried. We arrived in the wreck. At that moment, we were working in a part of the wreck that was about 25 meters deep. So the dive would be somewhere around 30 minutes, half an hour, not more than that. So we calculated that it would be okay to go out of the water still with daylight. As we were just exploring the wreck, we haven't established like mooring points to tie your boat when you arrive. So what we were doing so far was jumping in the water, and the boatman, it will stay with the engine going around your bubbles, the bubbles of your bottles. So these bubbles, he's watching the bubbles and being around just waiting for you to come back. Okay, you spend a little bit more fuel, but otherwise, if you want to anchor in a place that you don't know that much and switch the engine off, you are running the risk of breaking something from the wreck or damaging something. So until you don't have the mooring points established, you should not go anchoring on a wreck site. And less on a wreck site that is full of mint porcelain. You don't want an anchor falling on that.
Don't just throw an anchor. No, but I was listening to you and I was wondering why, because maybe it's me that's missing the point that was trying to make. Why not using a buoy? So what the person in the boat was trying to do is not to lose the divers. Can you not attach a buoy to a diver?
Yes, we do that quite often. In that particular place, we didn't, because normally there was a very strong current. This is in the entry of the channel of the Ilha de Mozambique Bay, and the currents there are very strong. So if you have a buoy with you, the buoy will go down and go under the surface. So it will not see it anyway. That
makes sense.
The bubbles as well, they travel a lot with the current, but they will come up in the same place all together, even if it's 50 meters away from where you are. But that's okay because he's nearby and he's watching the bubbles.
Yeah, because air is light, it sticks together. Yeah,
it
makes sense.
It will be different from the place that you're diving, but not that much. It will be nearby, and the guy will be nearby watching that. So there we were. In our dive, we arrived in the place. I remember it was already a little bit uncomfortable to work because there was not so much current, but it was already quite dark. We in 25 meters, and you want to make measurements and you need to see the marks in the measuring tape. It was quite uncomfortable to work. And when you have experience in diving and in offshore operations, and you are, mainly when you are in charge of the safety of your team and yourself, you develop some skills that you don't even know you have. And one of those is that I realized many years ago, that when I'm working under the water, I'm always listening to the engine of the boat. And if there is a variation in the revs of the engine, or if there's something weird, you will notice. And around mid-dive, about probably 15 or 20 minutes, I realized that for a while I haven't heard the boat. I was not hearing the engine. And I signaled my colleague who was with me in the water.
Your one only colleague?
Yeah. I touch him, is as experienced as I am, and I just have to signal him like that. And he said, no, I cannot hear it, because maybe it was me that was not hearing it for some reason.
Maybe it's my deaf ear that is picking it up, I don't know.
My very deaf ear. Well, we finished that dive already worried, because if you are in the middle of the ocean and you have a boat on top that is supposed to pick you up, one thing you want to hear is the engine. When you hear the engine, you are reassured that you're kind of safe. But
you're going back somewhere.
But then when you don't hear the engine, many things can come to your mind. That the engine broke down, so the boat is just drifting away because the engine broke somehow. I suspected that the boatman, which was recommended by some friend of a friend, and he has probably worked with this kind of outboard engines twice in his life. Maybe he was not that familiar with the mechanics of this outboard engine. He could not fix it, and it could be a problem. So the last minutes of the dive were really stressful. We didn't come up, by the way, that we should have done. We should have come up as soon as we realized that we were not hearing the engine. But we were taking advantage of the last minutes of light. So we went up, and there is this really eerie feeling of taking your head out of the water, looking around. There's no boat. No boat.
And now it's pitch black.
Now it's almost pitch black, but the storm, the storm is already there. Yes, well, it was a storm. It was raining cats and dogs and thundering and everything. So looking around, the guy's nowhere to be seen. We knew that the current was still really faint, about to get stronger, but it was pushing already. It was the incoming current. It was pushing us to the island. So not on the other direction, that would be really dangerous, but to the island. And
to the coast, less bad.
Yeah, that we were screaming, we were trying to figure out what happened with the boat and with the guy. I don't know if it broke down, what happened? And then we start swimming. I remember, then it was already black. And I remember thinking, this cannot be my end. I mean, come on, we are less than a mile from a house. Normally we are much further. The mile seems like you are in your backyard. And I was tired, and I was, swimming with the current, not against the current, and trying to figure, we got into one point in which we got close to the shore. We grab ourselves in the rocks. And remember, our bottles are almost empty because we finished the dive, because the dive finished, not earlier.
And people might not think about it, but things feel lighter when they're on water, but when the bottles are empty and you're dragging them, they don't feel much lighter.
You have to swim with stuff that is already useless. That is a ballast that you're carrying. But okay, you have to do it. So we arrived to this place, which was shallow enough. We grabbed ourselves on the seabed. We crawled to the coast there, which was nearby the fortress of San Sebastian, which is a very big fortress in the north point of the island. And we got to the dry. So, I mean, we were safe. We were inland, both of us. So that moment is put your bottle in your shoulder and start walking. Okay, take your things out and start walking about 1 kilometer to our storehouse, the house where we had the dive gear stored, to find out what happened. Where was our Zodiac? Where was our colleague? So we walk into that place. We already see the Zodiac on anchor in front of the house. So, okay, Zodiac is safe.
Yeah, so everyone is safe in
Let's see
theory.
what about the guy? Well, we haven't seen the guy yet.
Yeah.
And we arrived to the place and there was this guy, the boatman, chilling and talking to the 2 night guards we have already hired also to look after the equipment and stuff. They were chatting there nicely. And we arrived with all the gear after 1 kilometer walking with all these things on top of us. First thing was asking, what happened, dude?
Why would you leave? You know that we were still in the ocean, right?
And the guy was telling the story to his 2 friends. He was very excited and telling the story, and I was there. And then it came the 7-headed serpent from the sky, and it came onto me, and I have to run out from there.
Wait. What do you mean?
Yeah, it's, what? And then the other guys are all like, whoa, yeah, no kidding. And on all this story, I never heard that, well, these 2 guys were still under the water. So he just decided, because he saw this 7-headed serpent coming onto him, he just decided to flee and leave us there. Yeah, well.
See, and no backup. He didn't come for more backup. He didn't come for anything. He was like, these guys against the serpent, they died.
He didn't come back. It was like, okay, I'm escaped from the 7-headed serpent. Let them escape as well if they can.
He probably was like, yeah,
Well,
if they survive this one, then my boss is really cool. Otherwise, I'm saving myself.
It was really hard for us because we were shocked. We just came out of a situation. That's what I have this episode into Risking Your Life for Archaeology, because this is potentially a fatal situation.
Totally.
You can simply die there, you and your colleague, because it's inhuman to have to swim so much. Thankfully, the current was in our favor, not against us. But otherwise, you would end up in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It was a horrible situation. And this guy's talking about the 7-headed serpent that attacked him somehow. Now I wanted to know what was that for a thing. I mean, I'm a biologist. I know the animals around, and nothing similar to a 7-headed serpent. And then, with many difficulties, I found out that that was a way of some fishermen of the island, they refer to tornadoes. So the storm probably generated one or the other tornado. Then there were other people in the island talking about the tornadoes they saw. And for the guy, it was like a free pass. It was like, oh, a 7-headed serpent, I'm leaving. Forget it, it's like cause majeure.
Isn't it?
No.
Obviously, I want my father to be alive, and he is now. But what I don't understand is, like, in that situation, honestly, are you supposed to stay?
Well, there are plenty of things to do. You could have first, because we had one in the boat, you could have drop an anchor on our heads. You drop an anchor to where the divers are, you make signals to try to hit someone with the anchor.
Yeah.
That could be one thing. Another one,
There are many things.
You could start revving your engine, like when you
To give a signal, yeah.
A diver will come up. If it hears the difference in the revolutions of the engine, you will come up. What happened? Because normally it's a signal. It's a signal that you should come up, something's wrong. If that doesn't go through his mind, he could have, yes, escape from the place, wait for the bloody serpent to pass, and go back to pick us up.
Yeah.
Or to try to find us. I mean, at least to tell the authorities, the Coast Guard, someone, that there were 2 divers missing. No, he was chilling there telling his friends a story. I assumed that the story will end and we lost 2 divers. You know, like they were there, but they are not there anymore.
And they perished.
Yeah, he maybe didn't count on us showing up there a little bit later. Well, the situation with this guy, as I said, was in the beginning of the operation. You have to train people. He was not yet totally trained on the protocols that he should follow if anything happened. When we didn't have time to do that yet. Still, I fired him because he accumulated along the days another 2 or 3 situations in which he was obviously not interested in working in this kind of work. I had to let him go. He did with our compressor to fill up the bottles. So he disappeared with the compressor, which was ours. Never to be seen again, this guy. I'm not telling his name, obviously, but these unfortunate things that happen when you are starting an expedition and you still don't know your ways around, you don't know the people around you. Maybe was not like the best pick. After that, we have 2 great boatmen that worked with us for 14 years, and they were great. This one, it was not the best option. Okay, it was the first one. And I wanted to tell you this story for the understanding of people who are involved in expeditions of how important and how much you, the diver, rely on the rest of the team. It is not only that you took your safety measures as a diver, but the rest of the team have a big influence in your safety and in the proper functioning of your expedition. If there would have been a different boatman, this story will not exist. It would just have been, okay, we went down in the water at 4:30 in the afternoon, we came up and there was a storm. That is like another day in the office. But a boatman leaving you in the sea by your own means, whatever happened, and even don't be worried about that. I don't know what went through his mind. He probably thought that we were some kind of amphibious creatures, that we could come back anyway, that we didn't need him or the boat. I don't know. But it's just to make a point in the preparation of the operation itself, to be proactive and to be aware of the many things that could happen in the sea. In the sea, the conditions could change very quickly. You need to have training for the people around you trying to secure your safety, that they are prepped on that. So that's what I wanted to bring you this story. Okay, it is in a way risking your life for archaeology because you are the one who is in the water and there is someone who could put you in danger or allow you to get into danger. And if you like the video, please leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, share it with your friends and whoever you think it might find it interesting, and let's keep on diving.